Hi, I'm Phil from Driftworks, this is my buddy Jay, and this is my new S2000 powered AE86.
VTEC, woo! That's official YouTube now.
So those of you from the real old school will recognise this car. It's Ian Grattan's brother Ian.
Or Ian G.
Ian G, yeah. If you're back from the Driftworks forum days.
Not brother Barry.
Ian G. And this is his pride and joy. It kind of got built over the period of around 2006. 2005, 2006 maybe?
7, 8, I don't know.
I mean, some of the info might be somewhat lacking because that was a very long time ago. But what you basically need to know is that he built this car to a super high standard for a few years. He hasn't really had much use out of it, much need for it. He's been toying with the idea of maybe selling it. And yeah, I've kind of always doted on this car way back in the day when this was being built. I was not long out of leaving my job and doing Driftworks for the first time. And the cars that we were building back then, we were doing the absolute best job that we could. But money was not what it is nowadays.
No, I reckon this was probably one of the first professional builds I ever saw.
Exactly.
It was this and the Sumo Power 350Z, which was like a real racing car.
Yeah, and the stuff on this, I used to look at this build on the Driftworks forum and be like, oh my God, T45 cage, all the fabrication that's done.
Not homemade.
Just not homemade.
Exactly that, not homemade.
Not homemade, done by professionals. Ian came from, he's always messed about with cars. Ian's a web developer, I think.
Some sort of computer IT man.
He's an IT nerd, basically.
Yeah.
He's always had his toys, and I think before this he had like a really nuts Westfield, and he's always been into sort of the track car build. This brought him from track to still do track stuff, but also with an element of drifting as well. So enough waffling, let's just have a look at some of the spec of this car because it's fantastic. Let's start with the engine. Oh, it's got a real heavy bonnet on it though, an actual metal one.
To be fair, yeah.
In fact, actually, that's probably a good point. If anybody knows of, because I'm not getting carried away at all with this one, a carbon fibre roof, like a pre-preg carbon fibre roof that's available for these cars, and maybe a carbon bonnet, and maybe.
Well, definitely.
But yeah, the roof we actually need. We'll explain a little bit more about that later, because yeah, we've already been quite stuck into this car. We collected it 2 weeks ago.
We've had a little mess.
We've had Black Friday, so it's been really busy. But yeah, we have been tinkering. It's probably not an adequate enough word, is it? Tinkering. We've been getting
cutting holes, yeah.
yeah, which you'll see in a moment.
What are we looking at here?
Dun dun dun. So this is Honda's finest, or one of Honda's finest, rear-wheel drive S2000 F20c platform. Not a K series, although actually I don't really know how much difference there is.
I don't know what the difference is. And this engine was fitted to this car at 3,000 miles?
Yeah, it was about 3,000 miles. It came out of a S2000, ended up in a hedge, and Ian got the engine and gearbox out of that car. And I think to date, it's probably done
7,000 or something.
Yeah, so really low mileage engine and gearbox.
I guess you got to think, 15, 20 years ago, S2000s were brand new.
Yeah, absolutely.
They hadn't all rotted in half by
now.
now.
Yeah, indeed. And it has Gen V throttle bodies, Gen V ITBs on it, the noisemakers that are going to cause me an absolute nightmare when it comes to track days, the track days that I want to do with this car. But how cool.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah, and it's got, I think the manifolds are made by RS Fabrication, who did a lot of the roll cage and the fabrication on this car as well.
Right, let's get in there and have a look.
Look at that, it's not like me or you welded it.
It is not, is it?
Yeah, big fat primaries. This engine has been dynoed at 247 horsepower at the fly, I think, which is pretty reasonable, pretty decent.
Yeah, I think he said they went through how many design modifications on that manifold?
I think quite a few.
Yeah.
And now I'm about to take over that because there's going to be a few changes there as well. More on that later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's run on AM management. Obviously to fit an F20 into an 86, it's quite a bit of work. It's quite
They're quite
involved.
a tall engine compared to a 4A.
They are, yeah. And the oil pan itself is a big problem because of the position of the steering rack. So it's got the normal dropped cross member. Everything here is kind of dropped. I think the spacers look like they're about 30 mil. Engine position, I mean, obviously, I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, oh, I just could go a little bit further that way, but I understand the compromises and the issues and probably why this was chosen to be fitted here and not 40 mil further back. So when we collected this car from brother Ian, it wasn't running particularly well. Obviously it hasn't run for quite a long time, and the first thing I wanted to do was to just get it back here, drain the fuel out of it and put some fresh fuel in it. That's made a big difference to how it runs.
My Citroen sucked that fuel up.
Yeah, the dirty stuff that I took out. Jay was like, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, I'm throwing that away. Get in my car.
And then we've got, here you are, old man.
You'll have to watch my back. I broke it watching TV. Absolutely crippled myself.
What has happened to us?
Just
man.
Old age.
So, yeah, shifter. Nice, freezing cold. It is super cold in here today as well. I hope you appreciate us doing this YouTube episode for you, because we're freezing our tits off.
Yeah. Below 20 degrees now, I'm struggling.
Yeah, we're so spoilt by the heater in the other part of the the building, aren't we? So this is one of my favourite bits, though. Watch this. Jay, flick the switch for me.
Watch this.
Wow. Honestly, that's too cool. Standard S2000 dash, fully working, everything you need on there.
Yeah, he said even when it's for scaling the speedo, didn't he? So it reads right and all
there's
sorts.
a box that we can adjust if it's not quite right, but 9,200 RPM limit, I do believe it's set
now.
to. And we can go a little bit higher than that if I was feeling super keen. What do you reckon, Jay?
I think you're going to, because I've met you.
AM ECU there, and these gauges are AM as well. And I think you can choose what they display. I need to actually refresh my memory on this. AM is not one that we've really used before.
Never.
Which again is a bit of a pain, because how many different types of ECUs we've got in
You've
various
got a
cars now?
Link,
Pectel, Cyvex,
Emerald,
Cyvex in that.
Civex, probably a Haltech.
Boom. I'm not sure what
Haltech
runs
in
the Impala.
Holly.
What have we got Holly in?
The Impala?
Oh yes, it is. I was joking. I was like, "What ECU's that got in it?"
Got everything.
It does. It's
Got one of everything apart from one of these. So more software to figure out.
And probably one of the most important things that I've forgot to mention so far in this video is that it's not my first 86. I don't know whether
that's not your first 86
that's not
either.
my first 86 either. I think I've had two before that one. And that one's had, well, it's had three iterations. One was scrap when I bought it, complete scrap, needed thrown in the bin. Two was a lovely OEM plus, I hate that word, but OEM plus build based on a 20 valve 4AG. And then I basically chopped it up massively.
Oh, yeah, I've had two.
You've had two as well.
Yeah.
It's always been a part of our life, hasn't it? The old cheap JDM
no
car
feeling for them anymore. I don't know, it's weird.
No love
I just
for them
got
anymore.
no excitement.
Well, it tortured you financially for many years, and then obviously you went into M3s.
Yeah, that was the big difference. I got out one of these, had change in my pocket, and had an M3. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I kind of had the same experience from the Japanese cars side of things into M3s as well. You're like, well, what have I been messing about with?
Yeah, just buy that one. That's exactly what you did.
But yeah, then I've come full circle, and obviously I've always had love for that one, although that's not really an 86 anymore. Yeah, 700 horsepower 86 is not really an 86 anymore.
No, it's best to have 120 and not be able to spin the wheels, or 100 or whatever they are.
But a lot of that, things like the decisions, I know it's an LS, but the decision to stick to naturally aspirated, open ITB, all of the stuff all the decisions I made with it, stick with live axle, not going for an S-body rear end like a lot of people do, was to keep the flavour of the 86. And it's a shame it's up on the ramp really, but the arches on it are big fat gigantic arches that we made with Paul from Magic Aero. Tortured ourselves over months doing it, obviously.
Just
but
like
all
we
of
do.
it's kind of to try and keep it in line with what I love about a normal AE86. And yeah, it's got 18-inch rear wheels on it and 17-inch on the front. That should not work, but you know, I was pretty happy with how that turned out.
It's not bad.
But this is another sacrilegious build because it doesn't have a 4AG in it.
It's got too much kit on it for me as well.
Yeah, you're not a big fan of the
fiberglass tap.
I actually really like the standard bumper on these. So I've already started looking.
So this is a genuine run-free kit, isn't it? This?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's run-free, front, sides, and back. And I don't mind the front too much, but I really want a standard back bumper.
You're going to have to lose the side skirts because they're too big.
Exactly. So, because that tucks in much nicer, much lower. And actually, although I've done this exact kind of thing on my 86s before, I'm not so much into this shape of arch anymore, the one where it looks really blatantly flattened and widened. So I might look at doing something with over fenders, or I might look at making my own thing. I won't tell Gaz just yet though.
I'll tell him on Monday. After that one.
Yeah, so what else do you need to know? Workmeister wheels, obviously the two-piece work wheels.
Which Ian, had for a long time.
Yep, he's almost as bad as me with his love for wheels. I think he's had probably 5 sets on this car. I think we might go for equipped 40s on this. Work equipped 40s, I really like those with maybe the gold centre polish lip. In fact, on Hilux that you've got here.
Is that what these are?
Yeah, these are obviously super high offset versions of it.
So you're not getting SSR Mark II?
I actually prefer these.
Do you?
Yeah, I much prefer them. Yeah. Now, I obviously love SSRs, but yeah, the look of these, I think, because it does not look like that. Obviously, it's super dish.
Because remember, we are a seller of SSR as well.
Yes, we do sell SSR.
Yeah.
But we also have sold
a lot of
70,000 work.
Well, there's a big pile of them behind you, to be fair. But,
yeah, and I've had to move them about 7 times as well.
Yeah.
We've actually managed to get rid of most of them, but.
By get rid, you mean sell?
No, give to customers.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah, of course.
What else do you need to know? So, it's got suspension-wise, it's.
Tokiko HTS.
Yeah, Tokiko HTS, which is not something I'm going to keep on there.
I think they were quite bouncy in the olden days.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but we used to do a Driftworks CS2 kit for these cars. Unfortunately, the front knuckle design is so complicated to make, but they just decided to stop selling them. But I'm probably going to make my own setup with it, with some digressive CS2 dampers, because then it allows me to tune it exactly how I want it to be. So ride height, but also most importantly things like stroke, bump stop coming into the right play at the right time, valving on the dampers. That's what I love about these cars, about all my track cars, is actually the bit where you mess about and make it work how I want it to work. So yeah, techno toy tuning bits, all the posh stuff from back in the day. Unfortunately, the underside of it is it's not in the best condition.
It's not in the worst.
It's not definitely not the worst, because the worst was my second.
It's probably not the worst anymore. That was 20 years ago. I bet there's a lot worse out there now.
I'm sure there is, but the values of everything, and everybody's being really boring and putting these things back to stock now as well, aren't they?
What, stock?
Stock.
Not even a 20 valve in standard body?
No. So yeah, obviously it's the same as everything else in JDM world, where prices have gone nuts and people want sort of OEM or very slight OEM.
Big money in Japan.
They're not absolutely ridiculous, so you can still. Paz, who's looking for another one at the moment.
And he's talking like 10 grand sort of.
No, he's 15.
Oh, is it 15 here?
For something probably rusty.
Yeah, but they're all rusty.
Yeah, but this is 38 years old.
Yeah.
38 years old.
There's only so much time the Japanese climate can keep something without rusting.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's not 38 years.
Yes, indeed. So you'll notice, if we quickly step onto the inside, that this was not a part of it. It had 2 bride seats, Driftworks harnesses. I am a larger fellow, as you may or may not be aware.
Not a Eastern frame.
And driving position is so important to me. I can't be over the top enough about that. I'm so into having a decent driving position as number one thing. I was a bit worried that the super nice cage that's T45 TIG welded wasn't actually going to allow me to get the seat where I wanted it to be.
We'll get in there and get a bit of the detail because it is lovely.
It's so
it's beautifully
nice.
made.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I want to make some changes to
you
it.
can imagine us smashing things together on the drive or in the gutter or whatever, and then we saw this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, TIG welder.
Yeah. What? Hang on.
Pigeon stuff together with a MIG outside.
And then it's just. We have to show some of the detail in here, really. Actually, have we unburied that?
I don't know, haven't I?
That one.
Amateur. I haven't been in here yet.
There we go. So just look at the work in here. And there's no rust here, luckily. But
no,
what's all that about? That's excellent.
Oh, this seam. I haven't given this seam a poke yet.
Yeah.
It's all right, to be fair.
I have, obviously we joked when I was picking it up with Ian about pockets, but I actually haven't had my hand down there.
I think they're there. I don't think you need to worry about that.
Absolutely fine. But yeah, as Jay says, just look at the work here. It's something we aspire to be that good one day, don't we?
That is the dream, and we're learning.
So what else is there to know on top? TRD, but obviously it's got a genuine, I think it's an STI RA hood scoop thing.
Roof vent. Which
not my favourite, but
No, I don't even like them on the Subaru, but I know you can't have a Subaru without one, because if you have a Subaru without a roof vent, it's a rubbish one. That's the rules of Subaru.
And I think Brother Paz reckons that's probably worth about £1,000 now.
For real?
Just that, yeah, I think.
Well, get that out and sold then.
So yeah, that'll pay for most of a carbon roof, hopefully.
Brother Paz. I like the way they're coming back.
Everybody's now back to being a brother, aren't they?
Yeah.
What else do we need to know here? Because as I say, we've already got stuck into this. We've already got
had a little
really stuck into it. So maybe we should just roll that footage now. So one of the very first things I wanted to do when I got the car, probably like the day after I collected it, I wanted to get it on the corner scales and see what we're looking at weight-wise. As you can see there, 974 kilos, pretty damn good. And 56 on the nose, 56% of the weight is on the nose. But bearing in mind, this has 5 kilos of fuel in it at the moment. So yeah, not massively accurate. And also I haven't got any of my fat ass in there either. So that'll actually bring the balance back a little bit. But yeah, a bit more nose heavy than I thought. So here's the original bride seat or brid seat in there. Surprisingly, I actually physically fit in it, but it's not a safe seat for me, and it is way too high because it's on these Driftworks AE86 runners, which have integrated sliders. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of space to go down, but ultimately it's not the right seat for me. So I start looking through my stash of seats to see what might work. So this is what the passenger seat out of the AE86. Doesn't get used very much anymore. It is, it's a bit more motorsporty than I'd like, the ears, etc. And actually, because of the design of the cage, that crossbar being so high up there, it actually doesn't end up working out particularly well as an option. So back to the drawing board. Got Jay to steal the Pro 2000 that you see in the middle there out of my orange S15. Set about the job to get that into the car. Meanwhile, Jay was having a look at the rust issues that we knew a little bit about, but you're not going to know the full story until you start digging. Yeah.
Oh, this is genuine Toyota, isn't it? 80s Toyota.
Does it bring back memories?
No, mine wasn't this bad.
Oh no!
And mine was 20-something years newer.
Yeah.
We're taking the door off yet?
Yeah, I think so. I've got the back.
Say, what about the wiring? Toyota,
Have you got it?
Yep.
Have you got it?
Oh no, don't drop it.
Got. More not so good. Escalation is what you need if you want to be a record breaker.
What are you going to say last week? I'm just going to put a seat in and have a go. And now it's turned to, I'm just going to take the roof off.
So we're not doing that just yet.
Give us a day.
It does obviously need a bit of that. This needs some serious attention, a lot more than I thought. But this is the nature of a 38-year-old Toyota, or any car, to be honest with you, 38 years old. This is through 2 layers here, this being a major structural part of the car. It needs doing properly. We are thinking currently we're going to mask this up properly, cut this section out to see what the layer below looks like. The windscreen we are going to take out because it actually has a crack here anyway. It does need some proper attention, this car, but for now I'm thinking just get this kind of back up and running, kind of like I originally intended.
Yeah, but without this hole.
Yeah, without this serious hole that's just going to get worse and worse.
I've certainly made another window. May have gone slightly too far with the spot weld drill, but yeah, that seems to be how I do it. I'm just going to clean around the edges now, clean this out as best I can. We'll give it all a coat of weld through primer inside, so hopefully it doesn't happen again, and start making some panels to fill the holes in.
So look at this. Jay's made a really nice replacement part for the first part of this. The second part overlaps up to here, standard line, but yeah. Nicely made little panel you've got to get in there. Now, yeah. How are we going to attach it?
With our new TIG welder, we're going to attempt to.
We're going to attempt to.
This will be the first time we've ever TIGged anything that means anything, as you can see.
Yeah, we've got to show you.
This is our practice.
Yeah. This is, so Jay, you've probably spent, what, in a combination of maybe 2 hours? Yeah. Throwing welds at stuff and heat. And actually, my first attempts were like this type of stuff. I haven't really had a proper go at pipe yet, but Jay has got, considering it's not back purged and this is like literally the very first goes, it's not bad at all.
I mean, some days I'm happy, some days...
Yeah, there's only steel or stainless steel, so steel, yeah. Thickness, we're going to go to 1 mil.
Yeah.
And then gas, what's that one?
Tungsten size.
Tungsten size 1.6, yeah. And it's not a T, it's kind of a... Is it a butt? Yeah, it's a butt.
Yeah,
lap?
No.
Butt.
Yeah.
Your butt. And pulse level,
we don't know,
but I think that was all right. And pedal, yes. Yeah, and
it there we go. 40 amps.
Yeah, so
and it allows you to go up and down. I think it's about 10%, or just over.
So if you wind it down to 35 as a starting point, just in case, because we don't want to start blowing holes in it, do we?
I don't think we will, but no, let's see what happens.
Right, real deal.
Wasn't one of the first things, make sure you're comfortable?
Comfortable is number one. Well, fit up, cleanliness, comfortable, you know.
Let's see if we can get a tack on it.
Yeah. Sorry guys, you're watching amateurs.
I mean, it's a little hole, but it has joined it. Don't zoom in too much.
No, well, I'm looking at it's burnt the edge away a little bit of the original metal, which is probably thinner than
probably is.
The bit we're putting in, but...
Well, if I can get a bead going, I'm pretty confident it'll look all right, but let's...
You're going to tack the other end first?
Try and get in there, I think, or maybe just tap that in a little bit. I don't know. I'm just going to make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
Across the bottom here looks okay. I've just run out of gas here, which is why it looks absolutely terrible. And here the metal is so thin it's just burning away if I go anywhere near it, so might have to get the MIG out on that, I don't know. For now though, I need to order some more gas. There's the cover made. I'm just going to use the MIG to tack it in, just so I know I'm going to get a good purchase in the 4 corners, and then we're going to attempt to TIG it in. We'll see how it goes. Okay, I managed it. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but I'm finding it very difficult to come down on the weld. Going across, not too bad. Coming down, different story, and I MIG'd these 2 in because it was just much easier. I'll have some lunch and then I'll get on with grinding those welds down and we'll see what we end up with. What a mess. I've dug it out best I can. Just gonna get it with some rust converter before we do anything else. For those who didn't watch the misery of the underneath of the V10, this stuff basically turns rust blue and neutralises it, so let's hope for the best here. That's starting to do its thing up there now. Moving on, bit of seam sealer on this seam. We're edging closer. Because this isn't the forever repair and the current plan is to swap this roof for a carbon one to get rid of that, just using a bit of filler on here just to make it waterproof again, or temporarily waterproof until the filler falls off and bubbles up. So yeah, don't do this if you want to keep your car forever.
Oh. Don't look too close, yeah?
I mean, don't look at all.
Don't look at all. So that's it. That's my seating position. It has, well, actually, this is probably a pretty good way of showing you how a simple job for somebody who's pretty particular can take literally, I reckon, accumulatively probably a day and a half of actual work, and that's over the course of probably 5 days I've been working on just the seat. And I figured I wouldn't bother showing you the process because me and Jay did that with the Lamborghini like for about 7 episodes of fitting seats. It is the most boring thing that you can do, but it is so important to me to have a proper seating position, and particularly in a really small car, being a big guy. This is big guy problems. But yeah, that is now in. All of the brackets have been fabricated. There's still some strengthening to do. The seatbelt mounting points, because obviously the harness points, this one's fine, but I've had to move the one on the inboard side because the seat's where that used to be. So a bit more drilling, a bit more welding, and
bit of painting.
Yeah.
Job.
Happy days, and I might actually get to the point where I can then choose what steering wheel I'm putting in it, the length that it's going to protrude with all the parts that we carry in stock.
2 more weeks.
Yeah, the angle is really important of the steering as well.
All very adjustable. This hasn't got an adjustable column on it.
It hasn't, no.
Of course not.
So yeah, it's going to have to be spaced, and then I will just have to accept that for now. This seat's actually really far inboard towards the tunnel, way closer than any. If you look where that one is, that's like the equivalent of the driver's seat. It was matched, and now look where this one is. It's super close to the tunnel, and that actually means that the steering unusually is over to my right a little bit. I'm sitting further to the left, further inboard, and that's outward. So I might just have to deal with that for a bit.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. I know you would.
I don't worry about it. If I can
crap.
reach the pedals in the steering, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend a week doing it. This ordeal is coming to an end. Put a bit of seam seal around here and touched it up with a bit of grey paint, or the only grey paint we've got, which is spare paint for the Lamborghini, which might be a little bit dark, but that's what we've got, and we don't know what colour this is because nobody can remember. I've got a couple of little bits of seam sealing to do under this piece, and then it's time to get the seat in. I hope it's still in the same place.
So here you can see the brackets that we've made in all their glory. Joe's just thrown a squirt of paint on them, just waiting for those to dry. While we're waiting for those to dry, I just thought I'd quickly show you the underside of the car. We're nearly finished with the seat, but there is actually some more stuff that needs doing. As you can see here, even though this was a really well-built car and, garaged, it has got more signs of the crust than you would have ideally hoped. So yeah, the crust, unfortunately, it needs quite a bit. It's not bad, nothing's gone through, but this is probably one of the worst points. Obviously it's been jacked up and sill, that's really common.
It's not going to be a show by the afternoon, that's what we're...
No. Well, we're not, Again, I have to remind myself, the idea is to get out in this car and drive it first and then deal with the silliness that I will no doubt get carried away with down the line. But yeah, even the posh arms, considering how little use these have had, that is in a pretty rough way, really.
Just damp old England.
It is, I think, yeah. So, fitting an F20c obviously requires, let me see whether I can do this with, Jay, can you hold the torch? What
are we looking at?
I need to point. So fitting an F20c obviously requires dropping the cross member down. It involves chopping a big section out of the front cross member. It's done quite nicely on this where everything's dropped down the same amount. So you've got the blocks that drop the anti-roll bar down there. You've got the blocks that drop the cross member down here. You've got the clearance.
You've got the RCAs on the bottom of the struts to drop that the same amount.
Yeah. So these basically compensate for the block that is added here. So they bring the roll centre back to that position. But the problem with that is that it's nowhere near enough. Essentially, that is what you would fit to a normal slightly lowered 8.6 to bring the roll centre and bump steer back into correction. And actually, because this has dropped that amount again, really, that needs to be twice as thick to actually do what it needs to do. And then, obviously, I'm going to lower it even more than it's supposed to be lowered.
Of course.
So that's the whole project, but the bit that I probably need to point out to you first, I'll just grab the torch off you, is if you can just see that bolt there, it is hard up against the oil pan, and you can kind of see, I don't know whether you can really see it, but actually it's rubbing through the oil pan. It is about to be a pretty serious problem. So for now, in the interest of getting things done quickly, we're going to add some spacer shims to the engine mounts here just to raise the engine up probably 5 mil. We might do. I might just quickly check the level.
Yeah, tilt it that way a little bit.
But it might then become a problem with clearance on the headers there because they're really tight. So yeah, we're probably going to end up doing both. Long term, not that long term, but not now. I do want to take the sump off, which I need to do anyway because it's leaking. The sump is leaking all around here. I want to take the sump off. I want to reinstall the cross member. I want to have a look at what I can actually chop out of this, because obviously I'm not in any way critiquing anybody's work or decisions on this. This is a car built ages ago by somebody who is very, very particular, but I've got my own level of particularness with certain things. And one of the things is that I think that the engine's actually not back far enough. It's probably better understood from the top, but I reckon the engine can go back 40 mil. And as I mentioned earlier, lowering the car is pretty high on my priority list. And that's where a real challenge comes in. Let you hold that again. And that is this. So this is the world's most beautifully made manifold setup, headers for those of you overseas.
Because you've got the V10 as well,
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, this is very, very nicely made, beautiful bit of work. But it ends up, the fours go into the twos here, and the twos merge, all equal length, perfect. But it ends up stacked one on top of the other here, not what it should be, which is side by side here. And that means that if you look from this side, it hangs down below the chassis rails massively, like really massively. And even though the ride height that's been run on this isn't very low, this has been smashing into the floor already quite a lot. So you can see impacts here and pretty big impacts on the silencer here. And again, really nicely made exhaust, but it just all sits so low in the car. I'm going to have to...
You're just going to have to remake it.
Well, it's a really difficult thing to do here. Obviously, I want to bring the engine back anyway, so it'll be done kind of at the same time if I do choose to do that. But essentially, to keep these equal length to the point that they merge the same there and there, this is going to have to come up this way a little bit, and that's going to have to tuck behind it. But to do that, keeping these equal.
I was thinking, do we not have to keep these equal? But they're not equal anyway.
Yeah.
Look, that one's shorter than that one.
It is a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a little bit. But yeah, we'll try and make it at least as good as it is now, but just fitting and with good ground clearance. That's for later. What else is for later, Jay?
Everything except for painting that and spacing the engine up.
I think that everything needs to come apart at the very least. This.
Well, let's face it, the rose joints are going to be questionable.
Yeah, everything.
All of them.
It really is. And if so, just going back to the roll centre correction here, actually, this is a point that a lot of people don't really understand perfectly. Let's say is that this arm actually looks like it's pointing down. It looks like you might be deceived into thinking that actually isn't too bad in terms of the roll centre here. But actually all that matters is the inboard mounting point here on this rod end and the pivot point here. What this arm does and the shape of this arm does not have any bearing at all on the relationship between the outer and inner ball joints. So actually, if you were to draw a straight line from the centre of that to that, my camera's a bit deceiving because it's a bit of a weird angle, but that arm is actually pointing up slightly already. And what happens with that is on a McPherson strut setup, essentially what that is doing as that goes beyond flat and starts lifting up on the outboard, what happens as it compresses is essentially it's shortening this arm ever so slightly and reducing negative camber. It's actually applying positive camber as the wheel travels up, which is a really big no-no. So that's why I'm so obsessive about trying to get the relationship with that and that on my other cars, and inevitably this one in the correct position. And then I'll be measuring the bump steer and probably creating separate bump steer adjustment.
Did we film that on last, the bump steer that we played with?
The E30 was,
Is that what it was?
The big one that I got.
Yeah.
Got stuck into. That was a real project because we were limited by the actual rod end was inside the wheel. We've got a massive benefit here in that the rod end for the tie rod here is outside of the wheel. So as long as you obviously don't have any clearance issues with it on steering, we can come down pretty far on this if we need to. Obviously that's a big old project, but for now I think that's probably a good point to end this episode. We're going to what have I got? I've booked a track day, not next Monday.
No, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks on Monday.
Yeah, so yeah, we've got probably like 6 days of working days to get this ready to go on the track.
And James's car as well.
Yeah, we've got to get James's car, his E36 M3 ready as well. You're going to go to Gaz's with that, aren't you?
Next week, yeah.
That's another exciting little adventure. And then hopefully be warping around Donington in the next episode, hoping that we do pass the noise regs, because 110 dB, this car on induction, I think we're going to have to create some kind of box around the air filters on the ITBs to try and stop some of that resonance.
Or at least have an option with it.
But yeah, that'll probably do for now. I'm happy to say we're kind of caught up enough with the Black Friday stuff and all the work I've had to do to actually get stuck into cars again a little bit, and I do plan to do a little bit more over the winter and try and bring some more YouTube episodes to you guys, because it does seem like we've been a little bit lame recently, doesn't it?
We haven't done much. I was away for 2 and a bit weeks.
Yeah, Florida. Oh, loving life.
Yeah, shame, come back.
And on that bright note, thanks very much for watching. Thanks for supporting us by buying through driftworks.com. It's all appreciated and always goes towards doing dumb stuff with cars. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.